1995, Diana secretly ordered a DNA test on William and herself. She expected confirmation that William was her biological son. When results came back, Diana's world shattered. William shared Charles's DNA, but not Diana's. The palace had used another woman's egg without her knowledge. They turned Diana into a surrogate for someone else's child. Charles knew, the Queen knew. Only Diana was kept in the dark about carrying a stranger's baby. But wait. This started years before Diana even knew. The pre-wedding screening, June 1981, 3 weeks before the royal wedding. Diana Spencer was at her flat in Coleherne Court when she received a message from Sir George Pinker, the Queen's private physician. "Your Royal Highness, we'd like you to come in for a routine pre-wedding health screening. This is standard procedure for all royal brides to ensure you're in excellent health for the wedding and future childbearing." Diana, just 19 years old and desperately eager to please her intimidating future family, agreed immediately without question. She arrived at a private medical facility in London, accompanied only by a palace lady-in-waiting who waited outside. Sir George greeted her warmly. "Lady Diana, this is nothing to worry about. We simply want to run some fertility assessments to ensure you'll have no difficulties conceiving an heir after the wedding. The Queen is very keen to have grandchildren, as you know." Diana nodded nervously. She trusted the royal physicians completely. Why wouldn't she? She underwent what she was told were routine tests: blood work, ultrasounds, internal examinations, hormonal assessments. "We'll need to do a small biopsy of your ovarian tissue," Sir George explained. "This is standard procedure to check for any abnormalities that might affect fertility. You'll feel some pressure and mild cramping, but it's quite routine." Diana, who had never been pregnant and knew nothing about fertility medicine, believed every word. The procedure was uncomfortable, but she endured it, wanting to be the perfect future princess. "Everything looks excellent," Sir George told her afterward. "You're perfectly healthy and should have no problems conceiving. The royal family will be very pleased with these results." Diana left feeling relieved and proud that she'd passed this important test. What Diana didn't know was that during that ovarian biopsy, they had harvested 12 of her eggs, and what she definitely didn't know was what they were planning to do with them. Hold up, what they did with Diana's eggs was unforgivable. The secret decision. July 1981, 1 month before the wedding. In a laboratory beneath St. Mary's Hospital, Sir George Pinker met with palace representatives. On the table, 2 sets of eggs in storage, one from Diana Spencer, one from someone else, identity known only to the highest palace officials. "Are we certain about this?" a physician asked nervously. "The Queen has made her wishes clear," the palace rep said, coldly. "Lady Diana Spencer has concerning genetic markers. Her family history includes mental instability, depression, hereditary issues that cannot enter the direct royal bloodline. But the prince should know. The prince has been informed and consented. Lady Diana will never know. She'll believe she's carrying her own child. This is not up for discussion." The donor eggs are from a woman with pure aristocratic bloodline and no mental illness history, were fertilized with Charles's sperm. Diana's eggs were destroyed. Embryos prepared for implantation. Diana would be the vessel, the surrogate, but not the biological mother. The palace decided she was genetically unfit to mother a future king. Don't miss this revelation. Why they chose this horrific deception. The reasoning. September 1981, private Buckingham Palace meeting. The Queen convened a secret meeting with Prince Philip, Charles, and trusted advisors. This conversation would never appear in palace records. "The Spencer family history is deeply problematic," the Queen began. Diana's mother Frances had a scandalous divorce and documented depression. Her father has had multiple nervous breakdowns requiring hospitalization. Her grandmother was institutionalized for mental illness. Clear pattern of depression, anxiety, eating disorders running through that bloodline for 3 generations. Diana herself has shown concerning signs, Philip added. Overly emotional, cries frequently, desperate for attention. Our psychologists assessed her as having unstable emotional baseline. These traits cannot be genetically passed to the future monarch. An advisor presented another file. The donor we've selected, Lady Sarah Pemberton-Ross, age 38, distant cousin to the Queen. Family tree researched back 6 generations. No instances of mental illness, depression, or instability. Oxford educated, speaks 4 languages, diplomatic service background, perfect genetic profile for a strong heir. "And Diana will never know?" Charles asked uncomfortably. Diana will believe William is her biological son, the Queen said firmly. She'll carry him, birth him, raise him. Genetic tests at birth will show William carries your DNA, Charles. Maternal DNA is never tested without reason. Diana will never have reason to doubt. What if she discovers the truth later? By then, William will be established heir, Philip said coldly. Truth won't change succession. Diana can be managed if necessary. Charles nodded, accepting his role in this deception. No one questioned whether this was ethical or legal. They focused solely on protecting the monarchy and ensuring genetic purity of the royal bloodline. This is where the lies deepened. The implantation. September 1981. 2 months after the wedding. Diana struggled to conceive naturally with Charles, who was distant and preoccupied with Camilla. She received another message from Sir George. Follow-up fertility assessment. We want to ensure everything's progressing toward conception. Diana, desperate to conceive, agreed immediately. At the facility, Sir George explained, we'll perform a procedure to boost your fertility and optimize conception chances. Simple hormone treatment combined with minor procedure. The Queen is keen for you to conceive soon. Will it hurt? Diana asked nervously. She was only 20, naive about medical procedures. Some cramping, similar to menstrual cramps. Takes 15 minutes, then rest for an hour. Diana lay back, trusting completely. What she didn't know, they weren't performing fertility treatment. They were implanting the pre-fertilized embryo created in the lab, Charles's sperm and Lady Sarah's egg, making Diana an unknowing surrogate for a child that wasn't genetically hers. The procedure was uncomfortable, as warned. Diana assumed this was normal. Sir George monitored her, gave medication to support the treatment, sent her home with rest instructions. 2 weeks later, Diana tested positive. She was overjoyed, believing she'd conceived naturally with Charles. She had no idea she was carrying a lab-created child using another woman's genetic material. Her joy was real. Her belief William was her biological son was genuine. Her trust in the institution that violated her was complete. But you're not ready for Diana's first suspicions. The doubts. 1984, 1994. Over years following William's birth, Diana noticed strange things. William didn't look like her at all. Charles's coloring, facial structure, mannerisms. Nothing of Diana visible. People constantly commented, William is all Charles. Perfect little Windsor. Each comment felt like a knife wound. When Harry was born 1984, contrast became apparent. Harry had Diana's coloring, eyes, emotional openness, playful personality. People said Harry is so much like you. William showed none of her emotional struggles. Stable, confident, composed, nothing like Diana's anxious nature. He was perfectly Windsor. Harry showed Diana's emotional sensitivity. Sometimes I feel William isn't really mine, Diana told her therapist in 1994. I carried him, birthed him, raised him 12 years. But there's this disconnect. Harry feels like my child. William feels like only Charles's. When I look at Harry, I see my family. When I look at William, I see only Windsor's. Like I contributed nothing. That's your marital problems projecting, the therapist suggested. Common for mothers in troubled marriages to feel disconnected from children who remind them of estranged partners. Diana accepted this. It made sense. More logical than the impossible alternative, William wasn't actually her biological child. That was paranoia. Diana pushed thoughts away. Hold up, the medical mystery that exposed everything. The discovery, March 1995. Diana reviewed her medical history and noticed June 1981 records, the routine screening. According to records, they'd performed an ovarian tissue biopsy. Diana frowned. That seemed excessive for fertility checks. She called her current physician outside the royal medical establishment. Why would they do ovarian biopsy before my wedding? That's unusual, her doctor said carefully. Biopsies are for suspected disease or harvesting eggs for IVF. Did you consent to egg harvesting? No. They said routine screening. Diana obtained sealed records from the 1981 facility. What she found made her blood run cold. Records showed they'd harvested 12 eggs from Diana in June 1981, but no record of storage for her future use. They'd simply disappeared. There was also embryo implantation procedure in September 1981. Diana stared at the words, embryo implantation. She hadn't known she was undergoing IVF. She thought she'd conceived naturally. Why implant an embryo without telling her? Don't miss this detail. The test that revealed everything. The DNA test, March 20th, 1995. Diana called a private DNA facility using a false name. I need maternity confirmation testing, proof that I'm my son's biological mother. The technician was confused. Maternity tests are rare, ma'am. Usually mothers are certain. Just do the test. She collected samples carefully. William's hair, her own hair, Harry's too, wanting to test both. Results promised in 3 weeks. April 10th, 1995, results arrived. Diana opened the envelope in her locked bedroom, hands shaking. DNA maternity test results. Subject A, Prince William Windsor. Subject B, Diana Spencer. Result, a 0% genetic match. Diana Spencer is not the biological mother. Subject A, Prince Henry Windsor. Subject B, Diana Spencer. Result, 99% genetic match. Diana Spencer is the biological mother. Diana couldn't breathe. William wasn't her biological son. She'd carried him, birthed him, raised him 13 years, but he wasn't genetically hers. Harry was her son. William was not. Someone else's egg created William. They'd used her as surrogate without knowledge or consent. You're not going to believe Diana's horrifying realization. The truth. April 10th, 1995. Diana sat on her floor, staring at results. Her mind raced. The routine screening in 1981. The ovarian biopsy harvesting her eggs. The fertility treatment that was embryo implantation. They harvested her eggs and threw them away. Used another woman's egg with Charles's sperm. Implanted that embryo without her knowledge. Turned her into gestational carrier for someone else's child. But why? Diana remembered Pallas's constant criticism of her emotional state. Suggestions she was mentally unstable. Documenting every breakdown, tear, depression moment. They think I'm genetically defective, Diana whispered. They didn't want my DNA in the future, King. The cruelty was staggering. They deemed her genetically unworthy to be biological mother of her own child. Used her body as incubator while erasing her genetic contribution. Diana called Victor Mishkan. I've discovered something about William that changes everything. In Victor's office, Diana showed DNA results in 1981 medical records. Victor went pale. This is medical assault. They performed IVF without consent, used you as surrogate without knowledge. This is illegal. Can we prove it? DNA proves William isn't your biological son. Medical records prove they harvested eggs and implanted embryo, but proving deliberate deception without consent will be difficult. Don't miss what Charles admitted, the confrontation. April 15th, 1995. Diana met Charles at Highgrove. She placed DNA results on the table. I know about William. He's not my biological son. I know what you did. Charles went white. He sat heavily. How did you find out? I tested our DNA. William is yours, but not mine. You used me as surrogate. Harvested my eggs and threw them away. Implanted another woman's embryo without telling me. Let me believe for 13 years I was William's mother when I was just a vessel. Charles looked at her with something like pity. It was Mother's decision. Father agreed. They brought the idea before the wedding. Before the wedding? Diana felt sick. You knew before marrying me you'd steal my genetic motherhood? They were concerned about your family history, Spencer mental health issues. Diana, your family has depression, instability going back generations. They couldn't risk those genes in the direct heir. So you decided I was genetically defective? My DNA wasn't worthy? Diana's voice rose. You used me as walking incubator while ensuring none of my genetics went into my child? We used Lady Sarah Pemberton-Ross's egg, Charles said quietly, distant cousin of Mother's, impeccable lineage, excellent genetic profile, strong stability history. Who is Lady Sarah? Diana screamed. Some random aristocrat who's William's biological mother while I'm just the surrogate? Does William have a right to know his biological mother? Diana, you are his mother in every way that matters. But I'm not his real mother. His DNA comes from you and Sarah. I'm just the incubator you used. Diana shook with fury. Did you love me at all? Or was I only ever a womb for rent? Here's the most heartbreaking part. The impossible choice. April-August 1995. Diana faced impossible choice. Expose the truth. William wasn't her biological son. Palace used her as unknowing surrogate, future king conceived through medical assault. But exposing would destroy William. He'd learn Diana wasn't his biological mother. Learn he was genetic engineering product. Learn his identity was built on assault and lies. Diana told her therapist, "If I expose this, William's destroyed. He's 13. How do I tell him I'm not his biological mother? That they thought my genes weren't good enough? That another woman is genetically his mother and doesn't even know?" Diana made copies of evidence and stored them securely. She wrote William a letter for his 18th birthday explaining everything, but she didn't expose publicly, used it as divorce leverage. Palace paid her silence about medical assault. The final truth. August 1997, Diana's last days. Before Paris, Diana reconsidered staying silent. She'd begun preparing to write a book about her experiences, including William's conception truth. Planned to frame it as advocacy for informed medical consent, women's rights over their bodies, importance of genetic truth. She wanted to reveal everything on William's 18th birthday in 2000, giving him time to process before making decisions about his role. Diana died August 31st, 1997, before writing her book. The evidence was eventually discovered. Victor Mishcon kept sealed envelope until 2004, turned it over to Scotland Yard during Operation Page's investigation. They buried it. Mohammed Al-Fayed's copy deemed unreliable. Martin Bashir's copy disappeared mysteriously. Coote's bank copy destroyed in procedural error. Althorpe House copy never found. Kensington Palace safe copy confiscated by officials within hours of her death. They secured it in Sovereign's private archive instead of destroying it. William's 18th birthday, June 2000. William received letter from Victor Mishcon's firm. Diana's letter explaining everything. William read alone in his Eton room. He learned Diana carried him but wasn't his biological mother. Learned he was genetic selection product, created because Palace deemed Diana's DNA inferior. Learned Lady Sarah Pemberton-Ross was genetically his mother, unaware her eggs had been used. William locked the letter away, never spoke about it. He never confronted Charles, never exposed the lie. He carries on the pretense, the institution protecting the monarchy his grandmother built through medical assault and deception. Lady Sarah died 2019, never knowing her genetic material created the future king. Palace continues presenting William as Diana's biological son. Truth remains in sealed archives. Because sometimes truth is too painful, too complicated, too destructive to reveal. And sometimes protecting institutions means accepting that your existence began with violation of fundamental human rights, the right to genetic identity, and the right to control what happens to your own body. Diana's greatest legacy wasn't the charities she supported, or the modernization she brought to the monarchy. It was the secret she died protecting. A secret about bodily autonomy, medical consent, and the lengths institutions will go to maintain power and control.